The following is a special presentation of Tony Curry Radio.
Welcome back to another rousing rendition of the UAB Director's Chair. He, of course, is, look at that little smirky smile he's got over there on our YouTube channel. He's always happy to be on the big show here. The show's named after him. He is Mark Ingram, the UAB Athletic Director. UABsports.com. If you need information about that, you can always do that on their site there. But we talk about all kinds of wonderful things. And I mentioned here in this podcast, which, by the way, you can hear at least 5 times a week on the Tony Curry Radio podcast, wherever you get your favorite podcast. And again, right here on our YouTube channel, that this is a great opportunity. I could have coaches on. We could talk X's and O's and coach, what did you see, in the second half of this, or what adjustments did you make? But I really like to go straight to the roots of the tree, and that being Mark Ingram, because he's the one that can actually peel the curtains back. We can see how college football, college sports work from the ground up. I love that. I think that's safe, right? And so sure. So I bring to you today the final podcast of 2023. And I wanted us just to kind of pretend we have like one of those stovetop little ovens sitting in the middle of us. And maybe we're having, a little cup of our hot cocoa. And we're having just a nice gentleman talk about college sports in the year 2023. And I was trying to figure out, I always like to have some type of theme or some type of direction to go in every show I do. And it just kind of came to me a few minutes before we started talking that it seems like a lot happened in college football this year. And I just started writing down the things. It's funny because when you go back and you want to do like a year in review, and you start going back and you start pulling up old articles from like to January, February, you always think, wow, I thought that was 3 years ago. I can't believe that was just earlier this year. And it's just amazing how we cram so much stuff and information into 1 year. But I was just kind of going through some things like this is the last year we'll have a Final Four before we go to the 12. Jimbo Fisher got paid $75 million to stop coaching football. The Pac-12 fell apart. This is the last year for Oklahoma and Texas to be in the Big 12, which I think is huge news. It's the last year, the Rose Bowl will exist for lack of a better way to call it. I realize it's still called the Rose Bowl, but it's never going to be looked the same way. And then we get into something that you and I had discussions about almost every single week, the NIL, how that thing just blew up. And then the transfer portal, a new year for AAC schools. This is UAB's first year in the AAC. The FSU snub. I just started going through all these things as I kind of reminisced and kind of got a little sentimental, if you will, and was wondering what comes to mind when you think about the year of college sports in 2023.
Well, those are a lot of things. I mean, there's a lot of, you're right. I mean, there's just a lot that's happened in 1 year. It's hard to believe that all those things have happened in 12 months. But you're right. The college football playoff moving from 4 to 12 next year, I think is a big deal. Florida State, to use that term, snub, it's happened before. Yeah. I remember undefeated and didn't get into the BCS championship back when it was 2. That sort of caused it to go to 4, or one of the driving factors. And now Florida State is suing the ACC. I mean, whoever thought of something like that? And
crazy.
We kind of get to the point where you can't do any business unless you get sued. So, you see states suing the NCAA or individuals suing the NCAA over various, monetary rights and things they ought to be, in their view, entitled to. I don't think any of us are entitled to anything, and death and taxes,
Mm-hmm.
And but yeah, a lot of stuff, man. It's been a busy year. Our first year in the American Conference has been fun. It's been hard. The competition is tough. So we'll continue to improve and get better there. Just like all the members coming in. It's been a tough year, really, for most of us. And but just as our recruiting, I'm talking about us, Charlotte, Florida Atlantic. Everybody, as our recruiting continues to improve, I'm sure we'll all be more competitive. So it'll be fun. The competition is better, and that's better for our fans.
I'm not a political economist. I don't know how the GPA works. I don't know all these things, but I will tell you this: that it seems like the money in sports has absolutely exploded just over the last 5 to 6 years.
Yeah.
I remember Nick Saban getting $4 million as a coach. I remember doing a week's worth of shows saying it's gotten out of control. We can't be paying these coaches $4 million a year to coach college football. Where's the money coming from? I saw a great article through the Wall Street Journal from a writer from SI who had done a story about a family in Peru who got up at 3:00 in the morning to go out and mine their beans. They had these rollaway beds, and they basically were making somewhere between 8 and 10 cents an hour to pull beans. And then he reads an article on his phone several hours later that FSU can no longer work on $66 million a year in their budget. So they're suing the ACC. Where and then you throw in the whole the brand new CFO or CEO of the NCAA coming up with this random $30,000 number that we're supposed to come up with students. Where is the money coming from? And as an athletic director who has to put the reins on all these things and has to budget travel and how you actually can stay in the black, what is the growth model for college football or college sports as far as the money goes? And have we reached our top yet? I mean, I see this baseball player, with Ohtani, he's going to be making $1 billion, and he's rich enough that he could even say, "I want to back end that. Just pay me $2 million a year, and I'll take the $700 million at the end." I'm like, it's just crazy. It's just. Meanwhile, you got your average schmo who's still, doing pipe fitting for 75 grand a year, trying to figure out how to make ends meet. Is there a message here?
Well, it's like this, man. The NCAA worked very hard to create equity in terms of competitive equity. We shrunk the number of scholarships that we could all provide in various sports, mainly football, because you had teams that would, when we had 140 scholarship limit in football in Division I, you'd have a ton of talent sitting on the bench that could otherwise be playing, at other schools. And so dropping that down to 85 was a big deal and really created a lot of competitive equity. And we've done a lot of things in the spirit of true competition until we allowed the autonomy legislation. And it was really just about caving in to some very high profile, loud coaches. And then you get a few ADs out there kind of go, I think this makes some sense. And it was the worst thing we ever did was to create the autonomy group, which, fans and media call Power Five. And the reason that's a problem is because it took this room of people and it cut them in half.
Mm-hmm.
And lower budgeted schools help balance out the mindset of the higher budget schools. And that's when, as soon as that happened, that's when the bigger budget schools would say, well, hey, we want to take our football team to Italy. And when you start doing that, that's when people from the outside start saying, whoa, that money is grotesque. And we're not all able to do that. In fact, very, very few of us are able to do that. But we all get lumped in together. Mm-hmm. And just talking about coaches making, whatever, $10, $12 million. That's not what my coach makes. My coach makes a lot of money, and compared to most jobs, is very, very well paid. But it's not that. But we all get kind of lumped in together, and that was the beginning of the end, in my view, of how we've lost control of managing what was really great, which is it's really great when you can see those upsets. That's what makes the Final Four, the NCAA basketball tournament, so great, is those upsets. And you had that because you had competitive equity. But now by creating autonomy, what that did was it led to another decision, which is we need to do cost of attendance stipends, which is paying more money. We need to do Alston Awards. That we lost a court case when we should have sued the state of California and didn't. So now we're allowed to give another, $6,000. So, think of this: if you were a student of true need and you came to UAB and you got a Pell Grant, and if we were able to afford it, which we're not, but a full Alston Award and a full cost of attendance, you would walk away with about $20,000 in cash every on top of your full athletic scholarship, where we pay for your school, your food, and your housing. $20,000. Tony, my parents gave me $100 a month, and I had to budget. That's what I got.
Yep.
And And so we act like it's not enough, and that's what we can provide from the school. Then there's all this pressure to go out and get this collective, which is just a pay for play model, get a collective wrangled up together to pay kids more money. And it's like these people out from the outside saying, finally, these kids can profit from their name, image, and likeness. Man, ain't nobody profiting from their name, image, and likeness. They're just getting paid from a pay for play collective. There's there's 1% of the kids out there that are getting paid something or doing it in a traditional way. Livy Dunn from LSU, Caleb Williams from Southern Cal, that dude won the Heisman Trophy, and she has like a bajillion followers and had that before she ever got to LSU.
Yeah.
Now, so those two individuals are doing it in a traditional way, what it was meant for. Everybody else is just getting paid from this fake operation called a collective that doesn't do any business. So the point that I'm making is, to your question, which is about the money, is it is hard to control now, because it's like that old adage, you're trying to now stuff the toothpaste back in the tube.
Yeah. And I guess the question is, after a period of time, when Tiger Woods was playing lights out on golf courses, what happened? We started building more golf courses. When pharmacy got Big Farm, what happened? We started building pharmacies on every street corner. Eventually it eats itself from the inside out. We don't have Walgreens and CVS's across the street anymore because one of them had to close. We had to close roughly 67% of our golf courses over the last 5 years because we overgrew. We grew too fast. So what does this mean for college sports? I mean, this money that's coming in is just insane. And I love the fact that you went the autonomy, because I didn't even think about that. And of course I was, right in the middle of all that doing sports radio when this whole autonomous thing came along. We really didn't know what was connected to it. We just knew that it was a name for it now. Okay, now you're part of the Power Five and you're the Group of Five, and there's no longer going to be this kumbaya where we're all going to be in the same room. Now we're going to be in separate rooms, but is it really going to change anything? So I guess what ends up happening at this point in time? Does something blow up, or does it just continue to grow? And again, where is this money? Is it all TV money?
Yeah, and the TV money comes from advertisers. And if you were an advertiser, and again, a person listening might say, well, it's not the Power Five programs. It's not their fault that people want to align with them. And you're right, it's not. But when you create this separation and one group is called the Power Five, now imagine you're in charge of sports marketing at Nabisco. Yep. Who do you want to align with? This group of five over Power Five. That's what I want to align with. So all the money is going, all the national media money, all the national advertising money goes to those big contracts, which is why those contracts exist. And I will say this, when people like Jay Billis talk, and they talk about the billions and multi-billion-dollar industry that is college athletics, that's like lumping in every school together and every shoe company together and every television deal together as if we all share in all that, which we don't. So it's a poorly drawn conclusion that there's just all this money available to all of us. That money's not available to me. We don't share it. I don't get to share money that Texas has or Ohio State has. I don't share any of that money. Just like Nike and Adidas and Under Armour, they don't pool their monies together and we distribute that evenly. That's not how that works. And so it's, again, you take people that have never worked in any real business and don't understand the model, and they try to, on a national scale, try to make sense of it and try to explain to everybody how it works. And it's like, hey man, you don't have any idea. You're clueless.
Yeah. What would you say though, that college, and I'll just say football because it's the biggest, best thing that we have to talk about on a lot of college shows. Would you say that the growth model is still vibrant though? I mean, we're still growing, right? Every year we always have schools going from D2, D3 to decide they want to go in the FBS. I remember having this discussion a million times saying, why don't we become FBS? Well, we can't afford it. It just takes too much money to do it. And now we've got the Liberties and the James Madisons and all these schools. Every single year, there's another group of schools that get in the FBS, and you wonder, how can they afford to do that? Where are they getting this money from? And I guess, I'd ask the same question to you. The HBCUs, another strategy where, we're trying to sink money, and certainly Deion Sanders has a big part in that because, he brought a lot of notoriety to that. But, it just makes me wonder, and I know it's a really big pie I'm looking at in a really big sky. But I just wonder at what point when does the rainy day slush fund just fall apart and all of a sudden we have to start pulling back and all of a sudden we don't have 130 teams, but we now have 105 because the other 25 couldn't make it.
Yeah, no, I think it's a real issue. And I'll tell you, man, if we move to an employment model, which it's, I fear we are headed that way. It's not football you got to worry about. It's not men's basketball you got to worry about. It's every other sport that we have because and I'm not talking about UAB, I'm talking about nationally. Every other sport that exists nationally should worry about itself. And the U.S. Olympic Committee, I pray, is super involved. We are the training ground for the United States Olympic teams in every sport. Those kids compete in college before they ever get to the Olympics. We are the ones who train them, develop them physically, and prepare them for that sort of high level competition. And if all of a sudden, we don't have field hockey or we don't have, lacrosse or I don't know, swimming, track and field, these sports that don't generate revenue, then I don't know what the Olympics look like. And there's a lot of opportunities for people who enjoy the scholastic model. Most of the student athletes, the vast majority, like the model that we used to have. Very few, even of the athletes, are the ones that are proponents of what it is turning into. Look and see who it is. It's former athletes. It's former athletes who get out and start talking about their suffering and how they just couldn't stand it and how awful it was. And it's just it's kind of a sickening display. Anytime I see, some former student athletes suing their school, I'm like, man, you don't even know what you had. Kids live better with us than they do at home. And then they leave with a college degree, which gives them a real fighting chance to go out there and get a great job and to marry a person that probably also has a college degree and, really change the life of their family long term.
I know it's he's Mark Ingram, the UAB athletic director. This is a really interesting conversation we're having, and I wasn't sure where it was going to go, but this is the old man on my front porch, get off my lawn moment for me, where I talk about we had 3 TV stations, ABC, CBS, and NBC. That was it. And when I was growing up, we didn't have cable. We had the antenna. We were the antenna. Mark Ingram was the antenna. Get up and turn it southeast. I want to go watch my TV show. Exactly right. Yet we seem to be okay. And we'd say, well, see, look how I turned out. And, people say, yeah, look how you turned out. Right. And it looks like we're starved for content. The fact, if you told me 20 years ago that we now have 1,800 different TV stations and they're all not equal in who watches or how often they watch it, why would I possibly need that much content? When you look at, say, the ACC network or the SEC network or the AAC network or these networks that are doing these schools and they're playing women's volleyball or cornhole tournament at 3:00 in the morning. What do you think of when you see stuff like that? You were talking about, because I always think to myself, okay, you play ball in order in hopes to go professional, whether that's in bowling, whether it's in archery, whether it's in swimming, whether it's in track and field, there are ways for you to go professional. Obviously, there's not a big field for that. Certainly Major League Baseball, football is huge. You've got some of these other sports that you can get into. Women's basketball has really exploded. Thank goodness. Women's basketball. Yeah. And I give a lot of preps to ESPN for that, quite frankly, because if they don't get behind women's sports, I don't know who's pushing it out there. And I think by seeing it and watching it, it does make it better. I understand it more, and I'm more apt to see it if it's on at 3:00 in the middle of a Saturday afternoon, as opposed to playing some old football game from 1989. But are you kind of amazed or dumbfounded as an athletic director about how much content we have out there and how it continues to grow?
Yeah, well, as you were talking about having 3 channels, and we got a 4th one, I think it was Fox, and that was such a big deal. And I remember when cable was run into our neighborhood so that we could have cable television, and what a huge deal that was. Oh my gosh, we've got cable. Do you have cable yet? We don't have cable.
Yeah.
And now people can watch, movies through their cell phone. now you first of all, you have a cell phone and then you have a device that, can do anything. It's a computer, it's your email, your, social media, you can watch movies on it through Netflix and stuff like that. It's crazy. And, yeah, there's a ton of content, but it's almost like people want, yes, they want more content, but they don't want long content. They want short, compressed content.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting how we absorb all this, and we've talked about this as it relates to stadium design. Like when we were designing Protective Stadium, we looked at Regions Field as a model because who I know looked at a lot of other places, but the ability to walk around the concourse at Protective Stadium, and I could bump into you on the concourse after getting a hot dog or something, and you're getting a soda, and we're standing there, and we can watch the game because we can see the field from the concourse, and there's a little drink rail up there, and I can set my drink down or your hot dog and put your mustard on, and we can talk and watch the game at the same time. And people almost don't even go to their seat as much anymore. They just want and see their friends, and because it's a social event, and there's people taking pictures all over the place of each other and themselves, and with the city in the background and whatever, Topgolf in the background or the press box in the background and field in the background, but doing all that. So they're at the game, but very, very differently than like what you're talking about back when you had rabbit ears and you would maybe go to a game. And my dad, we would go straight to the bathroom, then we go straight to the concession stand, and we go straight to our seat, and we would not move until the game ended.
You weren't allowed to move. What are you talking about? Your dad, your dad paid for those tickets. You're watching this game. I mean,
every bit.
And to kind of to bring this thing full circle, I was thinking, I was watching the Duke's Mayo Bowl yesterday, and I was laughing, and I remember, when I got into sports radio about 25 years ago, talking about the Poulin Weed Eater Bowl, and I thought this is insane. We get the Poulin Weed Eater Bowl, for God's sakes. We would make jokes about it. We're not talking about Delta or Sears or Coca-Cola or Bud. We're not talking about these major advertisers now. We're talking about the Poulin Weed Eater Bowl, and I'm watching the Duke's Mayo Bowl, and my son and I are having a conversation. He's like, "Do you believe they have a bowl named after a mayonnaise?" And I said, "Well, first of all, yes, I do." And I said, second of all, you have to understand, it's not coming from Duke's. Duke's mayonnaise isn't paying for this. It's the people that make the Duke's mayonnaise, and that may be a Procter and Gamble or a General Electric or one of these bigger companies that wants to go out and say, "Gee, this year I want to put Pillsbury dough on this bowl game." Or you could have the Oreo bowl. You could have whatever. So it's just a different way of taking that money and channeling it through for branding purposes. And I guess it's a good thing. I guess it's a great thing.
I think it is a great thing. I mean, look, man, more competition is fun for me. I think the players love the competition. It is a little sad to see more and more players opting out of their bowl games if they're not in the playoff. I think it's selfish for them to not play with their teammates. I'm thrilled to watch Bo Nix play with Oregon. Really thrilled to see that. Trent Dilfer talks about to our players that one of the most important things for pro scouts is number of snaps played. And, people might say, well, this guy doesn't have to prove himself. Well, playing against different competition, that's high level competition, proves that you're as good as people think you are. And so, yeah, there's always a risk of getting hurt. That they could get hurt stepping off the curb, walking in and out of their practice facility too. And
gotta love these kids too, because I know there's a lot of chirping. And I can't help but think that when you're talking about a kid that's been in a school for 4 or 5 years and yes, has the ability and the gift to play at the next level, and having a chance to play one more time with his teammates, and being told by someone on the outside, "Listen, this is not smart. This is not a good idea for you. You need to think about your future. You need to think about the money you're leaving on the table. If you get injured, this is the best if you don't play." I don't know how many of those players there are. I'm assuming there's not guys out there going, "Good, I don't want to play this Saturday because my body hurts." Hell no, they want to get out and play. That's what they do. That's what they were gifted. That's what they're created for. They want to play football with their teammates, and all of a sudden they can't play with the most important part. Regardless of whether, and now of course people are like, well, you know what, if you're not playing in the Bahamas Bowl, you shouldn't be allowed to go on a trip. You should have to be made to stay home. Well, and I mean, I get that. I understand that. I mean, but I mean, all of a sudden you shouldn't go on the trip if you're not going to play. And so it's kind of like, okay, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, before I let you go, I was going through, and of course it is the end of the year. We were talking about the things that happened in college football and college sports in general. But according to celebritydeaths.com, we usually average somewhere between 10 to 14 A or B list actors and or rockers who pass away on a calendar year. This year we had 28, which is double what we had. And I just wanted to go through a list of the rock and rollers or the musicians that we lost in 2023. I'm just going to say their name. If you want to say something after I say their name, feel free. If you don't say anything, I know that you really don't care. Gordon Lightfoot.
Oh, yeah. Legend.
Yeah. David Crosby.
Legend.
Jeff Beck.
Great player, man. Nobody knows who Jeff Beck is, but he's a fantastic.
Isn't it crazy how no one knows who he is? And I mean, he touched so many rock and rollers. I mean, it's incredible.
Player, like, sort of a Mozart of his craft.
Gary Rosington.
Don't know him.
Oh man, lead guitarist for Leonard Skinner, the last remaining member of the band. I'll pretend I did not hear that. Burt Bacharach.
Great songwriter.
I mean, wrote like 71 number one hits, but never had a top 40 hit himself, which is kind of crazy. Tony Bennett.
Tony Bennett. I hired Tony Bennett to play. Yeah, I hired Tony Bennett to play. I was at the University of Missouri. We were opening up a brand new basketball arena, and we had this black tie event for all the people who gave to the arena project. And we hired Tony Bennett to play for show. God, it was so good. 2004. Yeah, it's almost 20 years ago. Tony Bennett. That was the first event in that arena.
That's amazing. What a great story. Tina Turner.
Oh, gosh. Tina Turner. I mean, so much energy and such an incredible voice, and really, I think, was such a pioneer for the way that women performed on stage. You know what I mean? With her dancing and how high energy was, and she was just really beautiful and also in your face, and just an awesome performer.
Lisa Marie Presley.
That's a sad.
It really is, and it's funny because you ask people about Lisa Marie Presley, they're like, first of all, she's not a rock and roller. Well, she was. I mean, you look at her dad, then who she was married to. It's just unfortunate that you get that response when you say Lisa Marie Presley. It's kind of like not a surprise. It's kind of like Amy Winehouse. Well, like yeah, I guess so.
A surgical complication.
Yeah.
Sad.
It really was. Hey, great stuff, my friend. I can't wait to do shows for you in 2024. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be a great year.
Let's talk about deaths next time.
You want to do that?
No, let's not.
Well, it's the end of the year. We have to have an end somewhere, man. Hey, let's just hope that when we do this list next year, we don't have 28 of them. And listen, I'm knocking on wood here, but and I don't even want to say their names. Paul McCartney, Eric Clapton, Keith Richards, Mick Jagger. I mean, they're Elton John. Oh man, don't say it. I mean, they're all right there. Ready to be. They're all in their 70s or 80s. So who knows? Hey, God bless you, brother. Have yourself a happy new year. We'll talk next year.
All right, Tony. Thanks, pal.
Thanks, man.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Curry Radio.